This is just a moment in time. This is like a cross-sectional time and place, right? Because what now matters is what is going to happen in the future. What are you doing into the future? How are you taking this and making this like the ground zero? Welcome, I'm Dr. Latifat. I am so excited that I get to hang out with you guys today because we're going to be having a real life conversation with you guys. And, many times when I record the podcast, I talk about me imagining sitting down around a table, around a fire with you guys. Now I don't even have to hallucinate today. Y'all are hanging out with me. So that makes it super duper awesome. As you guys know, everything we do here is to help women physicians be well, to continue to transform our relationship with money so that we can know money, have more control, live our rich life, and also be able to create our life of wealth. And honestly, when I think about why that is so important, I believe that all of our lives are valuable. I don't believe that my life is more valuable than you. I don't believe yours is more valuable than me. But I also don't believe that that our medical degree and the impact we have as physicians only is necessarily meant to be the ceiling of what we're meant to create in this world. And so I have found in my own experience in this short life of mine so far that money is a tool in that. And the more we can work on transforming our relationship to money, the more likely we are to be able to curate and be the people that we're meant to be. So, what we're going to be doing today is you guys will be listening to just a conversation between humans that are talking about our journey with money, our stories with money, our own personal journeys of transformation, but also as a coach, I'm going to be here to serve those that are listening in live, but also those that are going to be joining us and listening on the podcast. And I know that as we're recording, more people are going to be joining us. But we're going to go ahead and get started right now. I see a few people here. I want to say welcome, welcome. If you want to unmute, I'm just curious to hear from you guys. Where, like, when it comes to your own journey of money and life and all that, like, where did you start to get your influence about what money should be, what money should look like, what money should act like, and what is money? Like, where did that start for you guys?
For me, it started, as a kid, and I never thought we had enough money. And then there were a lot, no one ever taught us about money. Like, I don't even remember learning how to balance a checkbook from my folks. I figured that out on my own kind of thing. So it's a lifelong, and then my dad especially was really paranoid about the government, and so you don't want to invest in anything like stock markets and blah 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 because that's the government can take it, and so
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting how those things start early, right? Like when I was younger, I did not have conversations about money either. Like my dad worked, my mom did not, she worked at home. And I kind of started to have stories around money where I thought that, it's something that maybe men do, but not women. And as I've gotten older, I've had to unlearn some of the stories, like the parts of the story that is helpful, I've kept, those that were not helpful, I've ditched. But I'm curious, Dr. S, like, so how have you been able to make that transition yourself over time, coming from that story, from that experience you had as a now seasoned attending physician?
I'm just in the infancy of doing that, honestly, just because things had to change.
Things had to change.
It's one of those. I worked like two full-time jobs, one of which didn't pay me anything for a long time. Like somehow my wealth was going to grow because I was volunteering my time, not just wealth in money. I mean, that's part of it, but wealth in like life experience.
That's so interesting. So you had that expectation, or did they, like, how would they not pay you? Like,
Well, it was a nominal, it was like basically working for free.
wow, wow. Yes, yes, yes. Did you feel comfortable negotiating with them or no?
No, which is why I let it go on for so long.
We always say that many times there is something that ends up breaking the camel's back, where you're like, how does this make sense? Why is this happening? And I'm curious for you, like, what was it that made you realize that this could not go on any further?
Well, they fired me, which was a blessing. And then I have a friend who has grown leaps and bounds personally and financially she's in a subspecialty that makes a lot more money than I do. But I'm like, if she can do it, like I can do it. I am stuck and I want to be unstuck.
Oh, I love that. If she can do it, I can do it too, right? Just points to the importance of surrounding ourselves with the right examples, right? Because if nobody's moving, nobody's going to move. And I remember one of a physician that I had the pleasure of working with who found out that she was getting paid about $100,000 less, roughly a year, than she should be getting paid. And it looked like everyone around her found that acceptable for some reason. But then one day she decided that it was done. She was done with that. And when she voiced it out, people around her were scared. Even colleagues were scared, and they would say things like, "So what are you gonna do? What if you are you just gonna quit?" Like as if the status quo was good, you know? So I'm just curious, like at that moment for you, like did you know that it was a good thing that you were potentially good thing that you were getting fired? Or did you feel like it was not like did you wish you had the job again?
I wish I would have handled it differently.
Mm.
I wish I would have stood up for myself. And the same goes for the other job that I have. They paid me literally $100,000 a year less for like 10 years. And I kind of knew it at the time, but I didn't have the self confidence enough to discuss it or even to, you know, anyway.
So good. So let me ask you this question. How did you help yourself let go of it? Like, how did you move past it? Because sometimes I actually put a post up today that sometimes we look back at the mistakes we make and we tend to eat ourselves up for it a little bit. But you sound like someone that's done a lot of amazing work and made a lot of progress in moving forward. Does that sound about right?
If I let it bother me, I can let it bother me because that's a lot of money. But it's water under the bridge. I participated in it, so I have to own my participation. It's not like they held my feet to the fire. I did it. And I have to let it go because it's not serving me to beat myself up.
It's not serving. Is it ever helpful to beat ourselves up?
No.
So if someone was listening right now and they're like, wow, I'm so glad I tuned in. I'm hearing a doctor share her wisdom and her experience. What advice would you give to her about, maybe she was underpaid and didn't ask, or maybe whatever. Like, what advice would you give her, someone that has lived through this?
Gosh, I would tell her if you're uncomfortable, which probably she is if she's not doing it, reach out. There are people out there that will help. There are resources. Like you don't have to fight this fight yourself.
You don't have to fight this fight yourself. And I 100% agree with that. There was someone that a part joined our community in the money school not long ago who had not negotiated her salary in about 10 years. And I will be honest with you guys. Okay, this is not a scientific data, but there's something that happens to me when women are underpaid. It's an involuntary response. I start to twitch. I start to twitch. I'm like, what? What? How do we let people get away with this? And I know that it happens for different reasons. But for this specific doctor I was I got a twitches. And within 2 weeks, she negotiated, right? And what I realized is that many times justify we find reasons to justify the situation. We say things like, well, at least I'm doing good. At least it's not going to be forever. It's probably going to be okay. I'm curious, did you find yourself finding words to justify it, or you just didn't have the mental space at that time?
Oh, I absolutely justified it.
So, what kind of words did you use?
I like where I live. I like the people I work with. So, and those things are actually true. The negative things were, you're lucky you have a job. If you didn't have a job, you'd be homeless. That's the spiral I go in.
And I wish those things are rare. But what I found to be true is that when we now tell ourselves the truth, and give ourselves, because more than one thing can be true. It can be true, like you pointed out, that you could love where you live and don't want to get underpaid, right? You could love serving people and understand that like taking care of patients is a privilege and get well paid for it. And what I found is that when we get ourselves to a space of having a choice that actually we start to really, really, really tell the truth about whether we want to be there or not. And in this, so I've had so many experiences with this, but in one of those experiences that I had, this person justified very, very similar. I like the place. I like what I work. The good part, because, there's some good parts to the status quo. And that is why many of us don't change to move to the next level that we're meant to move to. And for this specific doctor, she said, I love where I work. I don't want to switch. But when she started doing her finances, where she got her, she had a debt plan, she had an investment plan, she got more confident by being surrounding themselves, like what you said earlier, by people that are inspiring, like-minded, that are will support you in a no shame, no judgment zone. 2 months later, she was like, I actually don't think it's as good of a job as I thought it was. The truth is, the commute is too long. I've been underpaid and they're dwindling their time and all this other stuff. And now she is going to be maybe potentially switching where she works. And she already knows she's going to earn at least multiple five figures more per year than what she was getting paid before. Right. So it really is interesting how we sometimes can be in that place of justifying the status quo. And life is not meant to be perfect by any means. But when we're justifying the status quo so much, we don't give ourselves the benefit of opening up the door to new experiences, including our own personal next level, our wealthy self, our increased net worth self, the liberated version of ourselves. I'm curious to hear what you think.
I 100% agree. And you never know, the next experience may be better. And if it's not, that's okay because you can have another one after that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know you were sharing your how you've pivoted in your own practice. And I would be curious to hear what gave you the courage to do that.
I was sick of the way things were going. I couldn't take it anymore.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So when you're looking at your next phase right now and where you're trying to get to, what you're trying to accomplish, what is one thing that's standing in between you and what you want, what you know in your heart that you want at this point?
I would say fear of, life has chapters. You have kids, they leave for college, you get a job, you eventually retire. Fear of the next chapter and fear of making sure there's enough money for the next chapter and losing my identity as a physician. I'm not married, I don't have kids. Um, so I probably have too much of my personal identity tied up in being a physician.
That's one that so many physicians struggle with, right? And what I've realized is that there is a thought about that identity piece, right? And every one of us, we all do. We all do. I remember, last year, my family and I decided to take a sabbatical, decided to travel, and I quit my job as a physician, even though I had many other things that I was about. But I'm grateful that I realized how deep that root can be in us because so many of us have been thinking about doing this since we're younger, right? And I knew that one of the hardest things that I was one of the not the hardest, but the most intentional gifts I could give myself was work on that identity to make sure that my identity is not just in what I do, but in who I just am as a human, like the characters, the features that I am. Like I'm a human. I'm someone's sister. I am a neighbor. I am a human. And you read all the stories of the humans of New York or the humans of whatever city. And there is so much beauty that happens when we can just take off the jacket of the roles that we play to just back to the bare minimum of who we are as humans, as the child that was born, 40, 50, 60, 40, 30, whatever number of years ago, right? And when we realize that, the fear will diminish a little bit because you still will be afraid of what you found, what you may find that you've never given yourself the option of seeing ever before. What if this is not as good as it gets? What if the gift of the last whatever number of years in practice has been the gift of known. And now it's a new season to experience the gift of the unknown, right? What if there some simple math that can be done to ensure and make sure that the numbers are taken care of. And then outside of the math plus I have my own back. What if? What's coming up for you?
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but that's exciting.
That's exciting. That's exciting. And I love, and by the way, never worry about monopolizing the conversation. Never, never worry about monopolizing the conversation. The space is yours to use. And I would be curious if you could spend some time and just write down what would be exciting about this. What would be exciting, right? And I always remind people that, nervousness can be disconcerting, but when you're nervous and excited at the same time, though that is usually like the magical combination. So it's sitting down and saying, how can I do this? How can I what if the unknown is the gift? I have my own back. I've looked at the numbers. How much do I need every month? How much is my spending every month? Do I have an emergency fund, right, to cover 6 months? What is my net worth, especially if I'm getting closer to the end of my career? Is there any actionable things that I need to do to plan that even more aggressively so that now I open the door to the unknown? Because I will tell you that the best part of my life has been on the other side of the unknown. The best part of our lives will be on the other side of the unknown. But many people are not willing to give themselves that gift. But if you give yourself that gift, you may just be about to experience life in the most beautiful, in the most abundant way that you've never experienced before. But there's a precursor, there's a requirement, there is a cost. And the cost is, are you willing? Are you willing? That's the question.
Absolutely. I was reading Dr. Alexander's chat. I don't know if you probably saw it. Mental state that I need a concrete step of what step to start with.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. No, thank you. Thanks for sharing your experience and your wisdom. And I'm seeing that as well. I wish Dr. S was in a place where she could chat. But what I am going to do is I'm going to make some comments about that. So for those that are listening, this is a very different conversation. I mean, I want to say, Dr. S, that went first. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It's so important for people to learn. And that's why even on the podcast, I share my own stories because there's healing in hearing each other's stories and knowing that we're not alone, right? The mistakes that I made. Oh, by the way, this is going to be funny to you guys. I did this stuff on ChatGPT and it was so funny. This was yesterday. My husband was looking at me like I was crazy. I asked ChatGPT, what is something crazy? And this is my own personal ChatGPT that I've uploaded with, the knowledge, my intellectual property, my story, and all that stuff. And I said, what is something that would people would find surprising or scary to learn about what I've told you so far? And it was very unexciting, if I may say so, but it was interesting. And ChatGPT said that people may find it surprising that someone that is teaching women physicians how to transform their lives when it comes to their finances and building a rich life also knew nothing about money until just years ago. And I was like, but then ChatGPT said, but that is the exact reason why what you do is effective, is because you get it. And I wish that more people would understand that our stories as they are today are just our stories as it is today. Everything has the capacity to change if we will let it change, right? And that thing that you sucked at, that thing that was a place of shame, that thing that you didn't want to tell anybody before because you thought you were the only one, could literally be a blessing to someone else. And I'm sharing that it wasn't planned, but if you're listening to us right now and maybe you're going through things, right? Just know that this is just a moment in time. This is like a cross-sectional time and place, right? Because what now matters is what is going to happen in the future. What are you doing into the future? How are you taking this and making this like the ground zero? Because after here, it's only up from for now, right? From here on forward. And I'm going to read what I have in the chat box here, which I think is so, so helpful. And someone said but the conversation seemed around money, and her own money story was when she was seeing her parents worrying about bills, splitting costs, and things like that. And, for this person, they said that finances was something that they had always wanted to delay because it felt like it was hard. But they are at a place where they now need a concrete step by step to start with and how to grow. And they also nudged Dr. S on and said, "You are not being monopolistic at all. We're learning from this conversation." She said, "Thank you for answering. I'm a talker in real life. This is hard." All right, sending you hugs. And just want you to know that it doesn't matter what the story was, it can change. It is not going to change without you. It is going to need your consent, your participation in order to change, right? I tell people that money is literally waiting for us. It is waiting for a CEO. It is waiting for someone that is going to lead this company of life. And so when we're not taking our place, when we're hiding, when we're shrinking, when we're avoiding because of shame, because of guilt, because I think I'm the only person that's struggling with this, what ends up happening is money literally is like an infant that's running into walls, running into walls, not sure of what to do. And is like, I'm just waiting for someone to tell me what to do. Right. So for you, if you're listening, or even if you're here, that literally is what money is waiting for. And there is a concept that I teach my women inside of the money school. I did not make up this concept, but I think it's so powerful. And it's the fact that with every single thing you want to accomplish in this life, there are three things. There is one is the be part, like who you want to be. That person, it's called the be do have. So what do you need to be? What is that person going to do? And that's how they're going to have what they want to have. I'm going to repeat that. So what do you need to be? What would that person do? And that's how they're going to have what they want to have. And what I love about those principles is that it works whether you're starting your finances, whether you're in the middle, or whether you're more advanced, because there are literally things I don't know how to do right now. I don't, right? I don't know how to manage a 200 unit property yet. But also, I don't expect that I should know how to, because number one is I have not learned how to. If I want to learn how to, I can figure it out. I can ask, find a mentor, find a coach, find a book, find a program, find a course. Like I can be resourceful. And that's one of the things that I want to remind those of you guys that are listening, and those are whether you're here or watch or listening on the podcast, is that we are resourceful. And how do I know that? Because it is literally like knitted into the DNA of every physician, right? We are resourceful in terms of like how we think about our patients. They come in with abdominal pain and we like have 5 seconds to figure out what it could be, right? Sometimes we're thinking from our own mental, our own knowledge base. We're asking our colleagues, we're ordering blood tests, we're ordering images. You may find an article, you may go on UpToDate, you may call one of your, like if I have a question that's like about ID, I may call my infectious disease doctors. Like that is being resourceful, right? So anytime you find yourself at a place where you're feeling stuck, the question becomes, in what way am I not being resourceful right now? In what way am I not being resourceful right now? Does that make sense? So that's a question that I want you to ask yourself, even if you cannot talk, which is, in what way am I not being resourceful? What is available to me? I mean, if you listen to this podcast, that's a resource. The money school is a resource. The idea that we have to do it alone is something that keeps so many people stuck and afraid. I mean, I remember when I had my first child, newborn baby, right? I'm thinking, what are the things? I've never been a mother before. I could sit down and judge myself. I could sit down and shame myself. In fact, I had fever after my C-section and I just stayed home. And thank God for like community. And one of my friends was like, this is not normal. Go in. And then I went in and I got admitted and got IV antibiotics for endometritis, right? So you are not alone. You are not alone. So my question is this: anybody else? I see Dr. C here. If you have any questions, I want you to unmute, because what we're talking about is like where our money stories started from. and where our money journey started from, whether that was like as a child, whether that was older. If you're able to unmute and share with us, that would be great. If you're able to talk, that is. If you're not able to talk, that's fine too. Just let us know. All right, so I don't think Dr. C is able to talk. So what I'm going to say then is, if anybody else has any questions in the chat box, make sure you let us know. But for those that are listening, just make sure that you're asking yourself the questions that have been brought up by the conversations that we're having so far today about where your own journey started from, what you're not asking, what you're afraid of asking, what is missing, in what ways have you not been resourceful, right? And answer those questions. And when you put the answer into action, that is how everything changes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop recording unless someone else has anything they want to share. I'm going to stop recording, and those of us that are here are going to continue that conversation. But I hope this has been helpful for you guys. The point of this is just to have these conversations more and more so that we can all be resources. Because at the end of the day, your journey, like the lessons that you're learning by living out these experiences, becomes something that can be a blessing to so many other people. So thank you guys for listening. Bye, guys.